They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back. That's not true. A knife you'd feel right away. This question mark. This was slower. Like finding out the water you're swimming in is poison, but only after you've already swallowed half of it. That's how it felt when Mike fired me. My name's Daniel Hayes. I'm 33, born and raised in Ohio, and for the past 7 years, I've worked in IT operations at a mid-sized firm in Chicago. I wasn't upper management, but I wasn't entry-level either. I was in that strange space where everyone relied on me, but no one quite knew what I did. I made things run. I fixed things quietly, on weekends, at midnight, without fuss, and over time that made me invisible. I didn't complain. I liked the work, the rhythm, the small wins. But when Mike, my direct manager, started throwing around words like transformation and next-generation talent, I felt something shift. He was never good at hiding his intentions. The man thought buzzwords were strategy. That Monday started like most others. Gray skies, bus ride, a cheap travel mug filled with burnt coffee, and the quiet hum of early morning office silence. I liked getting in before the noise, before the posturing and meetings. It gave me time to breathe. The final round of interviews was set for that day. We'd spent the last month looking for a new IT director. Mike's idea. "We need someone to lead from the front," he'd said, eyes flicking toward me like he didn't mean it. I had asked casually if I was in the running. He smiled, tight, empty, and said they were looking externally. But he trusted me to vet the candidates. "Find us someone solid, Daniel." So I did. I screened over 60 applications, wrote tailored questions, pushed for practical assessments. I took pride in it, probably more than I should have. I wanted to make sure whoever came in wouldn't wreck the systems I'd spent years quietly perfecting. I even brought donuts that morning. That's the kind of guy I am. I didn't see it coming. I should have. At 8:30 sharp, I walked into conference room B with my laptop and notes in hand. Mike was already there, sitting with Aaron from HR, and a younger guy I didn't know. New face. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. I smiled politely and took my seat. Mike didn't return the smile. He folded his hands, cleared his throat, and said, "Daniel, we're going to make this quick." That was it. No build-up, no gratitude, just the guillotine. Due to a departmental restructuring, your position is being terminated effective immediately. I blinked. I looked at Erin. She didn't meet my eyes. "What about the interviews?" I asked, more confused than angry. Mike leaned back in his chair and said, "We'll handle it from here." I didn't say anything right away. Maybe that's what threw them off. I just sat there, staring at the printout Aaron slid across the table. The standard HR paperwork, severance offer, exit checklist. Like my years of work could be distilled into 3 pages and a half smile. My mind wasn't even processing the shock yet. It was stuck on something small, stupid even. The donuts. I'd picked up 24 that morning, Mike's favorite included raspberry jelly. They were still warm in the break room. Part of me wanted to get up, go out there, and throw the whole box at the glass wall of his office. But I didn't. I just nodded slowly, stood up, and said, "Okay." Not because it was okay, but because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. They offered to have someone escort me to pack my desk. Aaron phrased it gently, like I might be a security risk. I declined. "I'll leave my badge and laptop on the desk. I won't make a scene," I said. I saw Mike visibly relax at that. Coward. The younger guy, the HR assistant or whatever he was, looked like he wanted to say something. He didn't, just kept his head down. I walked out of that room with my spine straight and my face blank. I didn't look back. Packing up didn't take long. I'd never been one for personal clutter. Just a framed photo of my dog, Scout, and a ceramic coffee mug with a crack along the rim. As I wrapped the mug in a spare hoodie, reality finally started to settle in. Not the job loss, that I could survive. I had savings, a decent resume, and no kids to feed. What hit me harder was the betrayal. I had spent the last 2 months screening candidates to replace myself, and I hadn't even known it. All those late nights poring over resumes, running technical evaluations, coordinating schedules. I was handing Mike the tools to cut me loose, and I did it well. God help me, I did it well. When I left the office, it wasn't dramatic. No scene, no middle finger in the air, no rage. Just a quiet ride down in the elevator with a finance guy I barely knew. He didn't say a word, but he kept glancing at the cardboard box in my hands like it was radioactive. When the doors opened on the ground floor, I walked out into a drizzle that hadn't been in the forecast. Of course it was raining. I stood under the awning for a minute, holding the box like a shield, wondering what I was supposed to do now. I'd given them 7 years. Showed up early, stayed late, covered for Mike's mistakes more times than I could count. And how did he repay me? By letting me hire the guy who'd sit in my chair. And that's when the anger finally arrived. Slow, deliberate, like a tide pulling in. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stood there, soaked, and made a quiet vow. You're going to regret this, Mike, not today. Maybe not even next week, but soon. And when you do, it won't be loud. It'll be precise. I didn't go home right away. I wandered, walked a few blocks with no direction, just enough for the rain to really settle into my collar. I ended up at a diner I used to hit after late nights. Cheap coffee, Formica tables, and a waitress named Dee who called everyone Hun. She saw the box in my arms and gave me that look, the kind reserved for divorcees and people fresh out of court. "Bad day?" she asked, already pouring the coffee. I nodded. "Yeah, you could say that." I didn't tell her the details. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Instead, I sat in the booth, staring out the window as the city moved on without me. I should have been crushed. But underneath the sting, something sharper was forming. Purpose. I'm not a vengeful guy by nature. I don't believe in slashing tires or calling people's wives with secrets. But I do believe in leverage. Systems. Process. Mike may have played me out of a job, but he didn't know what kind of access I still had or what I remembered. I was in IT. I didn't just run systems, I built them. I architected the permissions, set the firewalls, approved the access requests, even after they shut off my credentials, which they did about an hour after that meeting. I still had knowledge that no severance clause could erase. Mike wasn't just incompetent, he was sloppy. Over the years, he had used his position to bury his mistakes under technical jargon and blame shifting. And I'd helped him do it. Unwittingly at first, then because it was easier than fighting. Now I had nothing left to lose. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Not of crimes or dirt. That stuff was fleeting. No, I made a list of vulnerabilities. Not in the system, but in him. Mike had a habit of forwarding sensitive emails to his personal account. Just in case. A violation of policy, but no one ever challenged him. I knew the domain. I'd helped him reset the password once when he forgot it during a client call. I knew his security questions. His dog's name was Ranger, and his first car was a Dodge Neon. Sad, really. I wasn't going to hack him. That would be illegal, but I could trace. I could document. The real danger for people like Mike wasn't being exposed in a blaze of scandal. It was being discredited, quietly, systematically. And I knew just where to start. The final candidate we'd shortlisted for the IT director role. The guy Mike was going to hire now that I was out of the way. His name was Joshua Braddock. Early 30s, big on buzzwords, light on depth. I hadn't liked him. His technical screen was shaky, and he deflected questions like a politician. But Mike had insisted he was dynamic. That word again. So I started there. I still had Joshua's resume saved in my email. I remembered where he'd worked, who he'd named as references. I opened LinkedIn and started pulling threads. This wasn't about getting my job back. That ship had sailed. This was about making sure the guy who threw me overboard couldn't sail away clean. By the time I got home, the coffee had gone cold, and my fingers were twitching from adrenaline and caffeine. I dropped the cardboard box on my kitchen counter and ignored it. I couldn't look at my framed photo of Scout or the cracked coffee mug without feeling like an idiot. I paced for a while, took a shower, stared at my ceiling, but I kept circling back to the same thought. Mike thinks I'm gone. Quietly, like a dog he put down. And that was his first mistake. The next morning, I reached out to a few old contacts, not as myself, but under a burner LinkedIn profile I'd used back when I was job hunting a couple years back. I'd created it under a fake name, just to avoid awkward conversations while testing the market. Never thought I'd need it for something like this. I messaged an old co-worker from a tech firm where Joshua Braddock had supposedly been a senior infrastructure manager. She remembered him. Not fondly. He got walked out, she wrote back. Had some compliance issues, rumors, nothing ever on paper. That's corporate speak for we didn't want the lawsuit. I asked if she'd talk off the record. She said, "Buy me a drinkin' maybe." So I set up a happy hour meetup under my alias. I even shaved, changed my shirt, made myself look just professional enough to pass as someone networking. She showed up, recognized me instantly, and just shook her head. "Damn, Danny, you look like a man with a plan." I gave a small smile. Just curious about how people get ahead. She laughed at that, then told me everything. Joshua had been great in meetings, slick in presentations, but completely unprepared in the trenches. Worse, he outsourced a bunch of critical infrastructure tasks to a third-party vendor without clearance. When systems failed and compliance flagged the mess, he blamed a junior tech and resigned before things escalated. No lawsuit, no write-up, just a quiet exit and a polished resume. Corporate rot, nicely dressed. That's when the real plan took shape. I didn't need to expose Mike. I just needed to let Joshua implode and make sure Mike's fingerprints were all over the hire. I still had a copy of my internal interview evaluations tucked away in my personal files. I'd been honest in them, marked Joshua as underqualified, raised concerns, but Mike had overruled me in writing. Move him to final round. There it was, in a forwarded email chain I still had in my inbox. I spent the next 2 days collecting everything. My interview notes, my flagged concerns, screenshots of Mike pushing Joshua forward, and even a copy of an old email where Mike told Joshua to skip the final screen. We're good here. That was key. HR wouldn't have seen it. It was from Mike's personal account. But I had the headers, the metadata, everything. I packaged it all together in a tidy little file labeled "For Internal Review, Confidential." No angry letter, no threats, just facts, dates, and receipts. I sent it anonymously to the VP of Operations, who happened to be Mike's boss. Then I waited. It took 3 days. Long ones. I tried to keep busy, applied for a few jobs, cleaned out the garage, even took Scout on longer walks than he was used to. But every time my phone buzzed, I flinched like I'd just opened a door I wasn't supposed to. I kept telling myself I hadn't done anything illegal. I'd simply passed along information someone with real authority had every right to see. Still, when the email finally came, I hesitated before opening it. It was from Cheryl Torres, the VP of Operations. No greeting, no small talk, just, "We need to talk. Please provide a number and a time you're available today." That afternoon, we spoke. Her tone was measured, professional, but I could hear it in her voice, the undertone of concern or maybe realization. She asked me to confirm the authenticity of the materials. I told her I could. She asked how I had them. I explained, simply calmly, that they were from my work during the hiring process, that I had raised objections in good faith and had been overridden. "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" she asked. I paused. Then I told her the truth. Because Mike fired me the same morning I was set to interview the final candidate. I figured that said enough about whether my voice mattered. That shut her up for a moment. She thanked me for my time, said she'd be in touch, and hung up. By Friday morning, the dominoes started to fall. I got a call from Erin in HR, the same Erin who hadn't met my eyes during the termination. This time she sounded careful. She informed me, formally, that the company was placing the IT director hiring process on hold pending internal review. She also mentioned that several procedural oversights had been identified in the interview documentation, and they were being escalated to executive leadership. I asked her if I was under investigation. She was quick to say no. "Actually, Daniel, this is more of a correction." She said it like the word hurt coming out. Mike didn't respond publicly, of course. That's not how men like him operate. But word gets around. An old colleague of mine from finance, someone I used to eat lunch with every Thursday, sent me a message. "Mike's been in back-to-back meetings with legal. Whole floor can feel it. What did you do, man?" I just replied, "Told the truth." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The following Monday, I got another email from Cheryl. This one was more formal. They had concluded their internal review. Mike had been relieved of managerial responsibilities pending transition. Corporate speak for he's out, just not officially fired yet. Joshua Braddock had been notified that the hiring process was ending and that the company was moving in a different direction. I read that line 3 times, slowly, like a dessert you save for last. No apology. No thank you. But I wasn't looking for either. They thought I'd disappear quietly. Instead, I became the ghost in the system, the reminder that sometimes the people you step on remember how to dig. I didn't expect them to offer me anything after that, not a job, not even an acknowledgement. So, when Cheryl emailed again, this time with an offer to meet in person, I was curious more than anything. She framed it as a closure conversation, which sounded like therapy in a conference room. I agreed. Not out of obligation, but because I wanted to see how far the rot had gone. If nothing else, I wanted to look someone in the eye when they tried to explain away what happened to me. We met in the executive suite. Different floor, different energy. Clean carpets, warm lighting. Too many plants that never wilted. Cheryl greeted me like an old friend, which I didn't buy, but appreciated for the effort. We sat. She thanked me for coming, for my integrity, and for not going public. I just smiled. "I wasn't interested in attention," I said. "Just accountability." That landed. She nodded, folded her hands, and said, "We failed you. Not just Mike. The system. Human resources, leadership, all of it. You should have been in that final round. For the director role, I mean." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Then she surprised me. "We'd like to bring you back," she said. "Not as an analyst, as interim IT director. 6-month contract, full authority to restructure the department. Clean house if you need to." I stared at her. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part, the angrier part, wanted to say too late. But a deeper voice, the one I trust, said, "This is the win. Don't throw it away because it didn't come wrapped the way you imagined." "I'll think about it," I said. And I did. For 3 days. I took long walks with Scout, talked to my brother, talked to no one. The truth is, I didn't want revenge, not really. What I wanted was control, a chance to build something without tiptoeing around ego. I knew the team. I knew who did the work and who coasted. I knew where the cracks were. And now, I had a chance to fix it. Not from the shadows, but from the front. So I said yes, on my terms, contract only, full autonomy, no mic above me, no oversight committee breathing down my neck. They agreed. And here's the thing. They were smart too. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't out to burn it all down. I was out to prove that I never needed someone like Mike to succeed. That I'd been the solution all along. I kept the same desk. I brought back the cracked mug. Scout's photo, too. People stared at first, whispered. Then, slowly, they fell in line. The ones who mattered knew what I'd done. The ones who didn't, well, they got better, or they left. Mike's name never came up again. He vanished from the system like a forgotten patch. No email, no goodbye. I walked out every night with my head high, not because I won, but because I walked back in on my own feet. And this time I left the donuts for me.